The thunder of terror within 6 hours of the Code Omega Declaration, Earth transformed. Cities that had known only peace for generations suddenly bristled with activity as reserve forces were called to duty. Factories that had produced consumer goods retooled their assembly lines for military equipment. The hidden vaults beneath major cities opened, revealing weapons that most humans had believed were myths. Admiral Jonathan Cross stood on the bridge of the TNS Retribution, humanity's first true warship to launch in over a century, and felt the weight of history on his shoulders. The Retribution was nothing like the exploration and patrol vessels that humanity had been using. It was 2 kilometers of hardened armor and weapons, built using technologies that had been classified for so long that most people had forgotten they existed. Its main gun could crack a moon in half. Its shields could withstand a direct hit from a nuclear weapon. And it was just the first of many. Across Earth's shipyards, more vessels were taking shape with impossible speed. Humanity had not been idle during their century of peace. They had developed construction techniques that could build a warship in days rather than years. Molecular assemblers worked around the clock, converting raw materials directly into complex components. The asteroid belt that had been Perseus VII's territory was now being strip-mined to feed the war machine. Admiral Cross reviewed the intelligence that had been gathered about the Korvath Empire. They controlled 47 star systems and had been a spacefaring civilization for over 3,000 years. They viewed younger races as inherently inferior, worthy only of subjugation or elimination. They had done this before, wiping out at least 3 other emerging civilizations that Earth's deep space probes had found evidence of. The attack on Perseus VII was not an isolated incident, but part of a pattern of xenocide. The human fleet that assembled at Mars was unlike anything the galaxy had seen in millennia. 150 warships, each one incorporating technologies that humanity had developed in secret. Quantum shields that existed partially outside normal space-time, weapons that could manipulate fundamental forces, artificial intelligences that could coordinate battles at speeds impossible for biological minds to comprehend. This was not the ragtag defense force the Korvath had expected to face. But Admiral Cross knew that simple military victory was not enough. The Korvath had murdered children. They had shown no mercy, accepted no surrender. They had revealed themselves as an existential threat to humanity and any other peaceful species in the galaxy. The response had to be proportional to that threat. Total and complete. Project Nemesis had been humanity's darkest secret, a weapons system so terrible that its very existence had been debated for decades. It was not a bomb or a beam weapon, but something far worse. It was a swarm of self-replicating machines, each one no bigger than a grain of sand, programmed with one simple directive: consume and replicate. They could eat through any material, convert it to more of themselves, and spread exponentially. Once released, they could consume an entire planet in weeks. The human fleet jumped to hyperspace in perfect formation, their destination clear. Korvath Prime, the capital world of their empire, home to 12 billion Korvath citizens. The journey that would have taken Korvath ships weeks took the human fleet 3 days. Humanity had not just hidden weapons during their peaceful century. They had improved every technology they touched, including faster-than-light travel. When the human fleet emerged in the Korvath home system, alarms rang out across their worlds. The Korvath military scrambled to respond, launching their own warships from orbital stations and planetary bases. They outnumbered the human fleet 3-1, and they were fighting in their home territory. By all conventional military logic, they should have had the advantage. The battle began at extreme range, with both fleets launching volleys of missiles and energy weapons across the void. The Korvath weapons, the same plasma beams that had destroyed Perseus VII, splashed harmlessly against humanity's quantum shields. The human response was devastating. Missiles that phased in and out of reality, impossible to intercept. Energy beams that ignored conventional armor by attacking the molecular bonds directly. Within minutes, a dozen Korvath ships were expanding clouds of plasma, but Admiral Cross was not interested in a conventional battle. As the fleets closed to medium range, he gave the order that would be debated by historians for centuries to come. Deploy Project Nemesis. Target all military installations and infrastructure. Spare no war-making capability. From specially modified launchers, clouds of microscopic machines were fired at Korvath Prime and its 3 moons. The Korvath commander tried to negotiate then, broadcasting surrender on all frequencies. He offered reparations, territory, technology, anything to stop what was happening. Admiral Cross responded with a single transmission, a video file. It was the recording from Perseus 7, showing Korvath warriors executing human children. No words were necessary. The message was clear. You showed no mercy. You received none. The Nemesis swarm hit Korvath Prime's defensive satellites first. The massive orbital platforms, each one the size of a city, began to dissolve like sugar in water. The microscopic machines ate through armor, weapons, and superstructure with equal efficiency, converting everything to more of themselves. Within an hour, the entire orbital defense network was gone, replaced by an expanding cloud of hungry nanomachines. On the planet's surface, panic spread as the swarm descended through the atmosphere. Military bases were consumed first, then weapons factories, then transportation networks. The machines had been programmed with specific targets, avoiding civilian population centers but destroying anything that could be used to wage war. The Korvath watched in horror as their 1,000-year-old military tradition was erased in hours. The 3 moons of Korvath Prime housed the Empire's main shipyards and training facilities. The swarm hit them simultaneously, eating through underground bunkers and reinforced structures with unstoppable efficiency. Cadets and instructors fled facilities that dissolved around them. Ancient weapons that had been preserved for generations turned to dust. The entire military infrastructure of an interstellar empire was being systematically deleted from existence. The Korvath fleet tried to retreat, to jump to hyperspace and escape the destruction. But humanity had planned for this. Interdiction fields generated by specialized ships created pockets of warped space-time that made faster-than-light travel impossible. The Korvath warships were trapped, forced to watch as their home system was stripped of its ability to make war. Some Korvath commanders chose to ram the human ships in desperate suicide attacks. Their vessels were vaporized by point defense weapons before they could close the distance. Others surrendered, powering down their weapons and shields. These ships were boarded by human marines in power armor, their crews taken prisoner. Humanity was ruthless but not without honor. Those who surrendered were spared. Within 12 hours, the Korvath Empire's military might had been reduced to nothing. Their warships were destroyed or captured. Their weapons factories were dust. Their proud warrior tradition was a memory, but their civilian population remained largely untouched, watching from their cities as the human fleet orbited their world. The message was clear. We could have destroyed you all. We chose not to. Remember that. Admiral Cross broadcast a message to the surviving Korvath leadership and to every other spacefaring civilization within range. Humanity had come to the stars in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship. They had been met with murder. This was their response. Any species that attacked human civilians would face the same fate. Any empire that practiced xenocide would be stripped of its ability to do so. Humanity would not start wars, but they would end them. The human fleet remained in the Korvath system for 3 days, ensuring that every military asset was destroyed and establishing monitoring stations to prevent rearmament. Then they left as suddenly as they had come, jumping back to human space. Behind them, they left a broken empire and a message that would echo through the galaxy for generations. Back on Earth, memorials were erected for the 500 souls of Perseus 7. Their names were carved in marble and steel, their stories told and retold. They had not died in vain. Their sacrifice had awakened something in humanity, a reminder of what they were capable of when defending their own. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. Humans were builders, explorers, dreamers. But when threatened, when their children were murdered, when their peace was shattered, they were something else entirely. They were the storm that ended worlds. The Silent Strike. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter had been humanity's mining frontier for 3 decades. Mining station Perseus 7 floated among the rocks like a metal spider, its arms extending to process precious minerals that kept Earth's industries running. Commander Elena Vasquez stood in the observation deck, watching her crew work the asteroid fields. 500 souls called this station home, not just miners but their families too, engineers, doctors, teachers, even a small group of artists who found inspiration in the eternal dance of spinning rocks and distant stars. Elena had commanded Perseus 7 for 5 years. She knew every corridor, every room, every person by name, Young Jamie Chen was celebrating his 10th birthday in the recreation hall today. His mother worked in the refinery while his father taught mathematics to the station's children. Old Samuel Rodriguez maintained the life support systems with the care of someone tending a garden. His granddaughter had just started her apprenticeship in the engineering department. This was more than a mining operation. It was a community floating in the darkness of space. The morning shift was proceeding normally when Communications Officer David Park detected something unusual. Strange energy signatures appeared on the long-range sensors, moving through space in a pattern that suggested intelligence rather than natural phenomena. Elena arrived at the command center within minutes. The readings showed multiple objects approaching from beyond the solar system, decelerating in a way that only ships with faster-than-light capability could manage. First contact protocols were clear. Elena ordered all non-essential personnel to secure areas while maintaining normal operations, to avoid showing fear or aggression. She transmitted the standard greeting message that humanity had prepared decades ago. A mathematical sequence followed by basic linguistic patterns designed to establish peaceful communication. The response came quickly, but it was not what anyone expected. The Korvath ships dropped out of hyperspace just beyond the asteroid belt. They were massive vessels, each one dwarfing Perseus 7 by a factor of 10. Their hulls were dark purple, almost black, with geometric patterns that seemed to shift and change as light played across them. Through the observation windows, the human crew could see weapon ports opening along the sides of the alien vessels. Elena tried to communicate again, broadcasting on every frequency, using every protocol humanity had developed for peaceful first contact. The Korvath response was swift and brutal. Energy beams lanced out from their ships, cutting through Perseus 7's defensive shields like they were made of paper. The station shuddered under the impact, alarms screaming as hull breaches appeared across multiple sections. In the engineering section, Marcus Webb worked frantically to keep the station's systems running. The Korvath weapons were unlike anything in human databases, some kind of directed plasma that ate through their hull plating with terrifying efficiency. He rerouted power from non-essential systems to strengthen the shields, but it was like trying to stop a flood with a bucket. Around him, his team worked with desperate efficiency, knowing that every second they bought might save lives. The attack was methodical and merciless. The Korvath targeted the station's defensive systems first, then the communications array, then the escape pods. They wanted no survivors, no witnesses, no one to tell the tale of what happened here. But Marcus had one advantage they didn't know about. Perseus 7 had a quantum entanglement communicator, a prototype device that could send messages instantly across any distance. It was meant for emergency situations exactly like this. As the station began to break apart around him, Marcus activated the quantum communicator. He had less than a minute before the power failed completely. His fingers flew across the keyboard, encoding everything their sensors had recorded about the attack. The Korvath ship configurations, their weapon signatures, their approach vectors, everything that might help Earth understand what had happened here. He included video feeds from the security cameras showing the aliens themselves when they boarded the station. The Korvath were tall, serpentine creatures with forearms and scales that shimmered with bioluminescent patterns. They moved through the station's corridors with military precision, eliminating any humans they encountered with handheld weapons that fired the same plasma energy as their ships. They showed no mercy, no hesitation. When they found the school section where 32 children were huddled with their teacher, they eliminated them just as efficiently as they had the armed security personnel. Elena Vasquez made her last stand in the command center. As Korvath warriors breached the reinforced doors, she stood facing them without weapons, her hands raised in the universal gesture of surrender. She tried one more time to communicate, to understand why they were doing this. The lead Korvath warrior spoke in a language the universal translator struggled to parse, but the meaning came through clearly enough. Humans had expanded too far, too fast. The galaxy belonged to the old races, and humanity was an infection that needed to be purged before it spread further. The warrior raised his weapon, and Elena Vasquez, commander of Perseus 7, died standing at her post. But she had bought Marcus Webb the time he needed. As the last of the station's power failed and the emergency lights flickered out, the quantum message completed its transmission. The full record of the Perseus 7 massacre was already streaming through quantum space, arriving instantly at Earth Defense Command. The Korvath ships powered up their weapons for one final barrage, intending to reduce the station to atoms to leave no trace of what had happened here. They fired simultaneously, their plasma beams converging on the dying station. Perseus 7 exploded in a brilliant flash that could be seen from Mars. 500 human lives ended in that moment. Men, women, and children who had done nothing but work and live and dream among the stars. The Korvath fleet formed up and activated their hyperdrives, disappearing into the void as quickly as they had come. They left behind only expanding clouds of debris and frozen bodies tumbling through space. In their home system, the Korvath leadership would record this as a successful preemptive strike against an emerging threat. They had sent their message clearly. Humanity was not welcome among the stars, but they had made a fundamental error in their calculations. They had studied human history and seen a species that had not fought a major war in over a century. They had observed human colonies and found them lightly defended, focused on science and commerce rather than military might. They had concluded that humanity had grown soft, weak, unwilling to fight. They were wrong. On Earth, the quantum message from Perseus 7 arrived at Defense Command headquarters in Geneva. General Patricia Hammond was reviewing colony development reports when her aide burst into her office with a priority alpha alert. As she watched the video feeds from Perseus 7, as she saw the children die, as she heard Elena Vasquez's final words, something cold and terrible awakened in her heart. Hammond had studied military history all her life. She knew what humanity was capable of when truly provoked. The last great war on Earth had ended not because humanity couldn't fight, but because they had become too good at it. The weapons they had developed, the tactics they had perfected, the absolute ruthlessness they had shown had frightened even themselves. So they had chosen peace, chosen to explore rather than conquer, chosen to build rather than destroy. But the old weapons still existed, locked away in hidden vaults. The old shipyards that had built world-ending dreadnoughts had been mothballed but not destroyed. The genetic enhancement programs, the artificial intelligence warfare systems, the planet cracker missiles, they were all still there, waiting. Humanity had not forgotten how to wage war. They had simply chosen not to. General Hammond activated her emergency communication system and spoke the words that hadn't been said in over a century. The words that would echo across human space and change the galaxy forever. Code Omega. All units, all colonies, all of humanity. Code Omega, we are at war.